What's going on, guys? It's Everett here. In this video, we're going to talk about shoulder blade or scapula protraction and how for some of you, it might be the missing link to increasing your shoulder health and performance. Now, I recently made a full shoulder blade mobility video. This isn't necessarily a part 2, but that video does lead perfectly into the topic we're covering here today. Now, if you've ever heard or tried to train your shoulder blade protraction, it's probably because you have winging scapula. And a lot of people believe by strengthening protraction and one of the muscles involved in protraction called the serratus anterior, it's the little bumpy muscle right here on the sides of your ribs, that will help your winging scapula. Winging scapula is when you have your shoulder blade and it starts to pull off your rib cage as you move, and that affects shoulder performance and shoulder health. Now, I'm not a doctor and I don't know who you are, so just increasing protraction isn't going to magically fix your winging scapula. It could be because you have scoliosis, you have rib dysfunction, breathing dysfunction with your diaphragm, or maybe your shoulder joint itself, your glenohumeral joint, doesn't work that well. And so all of the muscles are kind of tightening up to protect that shoulder because your body cares about you. And when you move your shoulder, the shoulder blade moves too much as well. So it could be a variety of reasons. But I do know one thing for sure, the better shoulder blade protraction you have, it's going to improve your shoulder girdle and your shoulder health to some degree. How much? It's really up to your situation, but it is vital for long-term health and performance, and I've seen huge impact on myself and clients when we improve the range of motion in protraction and our strength throughout that range of motion. Another reason we want to train protraction is because of text neck. Everyone's heard of text neck before. It's this rounded forward position. So one, most people don't have very good upper thoracic, shoulder, and shoulder blade mobility. And then when they start to train all three of those things, they typically want to do the opposite of this rounded position. So they think going backwards, rolling my shoulder blades back, getting more extension, opening up the chest, getting shoulder blade retraction, which is true, and those are all important things. But one of the problems with the text neck position is you're rounded forward, but in a relaxed position. So we still want to be able to train flexion of the spine and protraction actively, and it's just as important as retraction and getting opened up into extension. So let's hop into the stretches and the movements on how I improve shoulder blade protraction. All right, so we're gonna start out with something that's going to surprise a lot of you, and that is diaphragmatic breathing. So I can get into this in another video, but breathing with your diaphragm is extremely important to your entire midline and movement as well. So what I'm doing here is I've got a 90-degree bend behind my knees and my hips. I've got my back nice and neutral on the ground. I'm doing a 5 count in through my nose, expanding my ribs, my belly, breathing out sideways into my obliques in a 360-degree fashion, as big as I can. And then I'm exhaling, really pushing my belly button to my spine with a little bit of force and blowing air out through my mouth. Now I've got my hands on my ribs, so when I'm collapsed, my fingertips are touching, and then as I breathe in, my fingertips spread away as my ribs expand. This just ensures that I'm breathing in, again, a 360-degree fashion from my belly button all the way to my mid ribs. So I would do 5 reps here, again, a 5 count in, 5 count out before you do any of these exercises. This is great to do before you work out, in the morning and at night. We honestly have a lot of breathing dysfunction, and this is something foundational for good shoulder blade movement, because again, those shoulder blades move on the ribs and the ribs move when you breathe. Now, I mentioned I just made a full shoulder blade mobility video, and these are controlled articular rotations for the scapulas. Again, these are also foundational. Just doing a few reps clockwise and counterclockwise every day will help you connect to your muscles more and get better shoulder blade movement. So we're going through everything your scapulas do: retraction, protraction, elevation, and depression, and making it one big movement. If you want more information on this, watch that video. I go into more detail and teach you how to do these correctly. They look simple, but they get a little tricky. So up next, we're going to work on a stretch that grabs a little bit of external shoulder rotation, protraction, your lats, your serratus anterior. So you can load up on a barbell. You can also do this on a door handle. And sometimes it's easier to do a hook grip from like powerlifting or Olympic lifting, where you trap your thumb. That allows you to relax your arm a little bit more. You can also use an exercise band for this, and I'll show you how to use that right here. Pass your hand underneath the band, make a peace symbol, and then rotate or supinate your hand and trap that wrist so that way you can relax a little bit more into the stretch. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know we're always looking for areas that we're cheating or compensating to get further into the stretch, but it's actually not going to help us because we're using other parts of our body and we're not getting more flexibility at the area we're focusing on. So it's counterproductive. So oftentimes what I see with this stretch is people's shoulders hiked way too far up towards their ear. So what we need to do is pull that shoulder back into a little bit of retraction and then drop it down. And now we'll push the hips back and push the chest down, and you can see my shoulder blade and my lats start to slide on the sides of my body. So that's what we're going for. You really want to think about keeping your shoulder and your armpit down, and you might not get nearly as far into this stretch if you do this, and that's fine. So we're going to do 2 minutes here. Something else you can look out for is your bicep. If your bicep starts rotating towards your ear instead of staying pointed towards the ceiling, that's a pretty good sign that that shoulder is hiking up towards the ear and we're losing that protraction. And now we'll move into a little bit of an isometric position here. So I'm doing a plank and I've got my fists on the floor instead of my palms. Palms require a little bit of wrist flexibility and they can mess up the shoulder position. So I'm just kind of deleting the wrists, taking them out of the equation and using fists here. As you can see, I don't want my shoulders popped up towards my ears. I still want them drawn down a little bit more closer to my hips. And I am pushing these shoulder blades to the sides of the ribs. You can see my lats and my serratus anterior firing. And you can hold this for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, do anywhere from 2 to 4 sets. You might also have to shift your body weight a little bit forward to keep the shoulders on the fists. A harder version of this would be on all fours. You want your fists facing perfectly forward from the elbows and elbows underneath the shoulders. So this can be a little bit trickier because you've got a bend in the elbow now. You might feel this a lot more on the sides of the ribs, in the lats, and by the shoulder. So a little bit of a progression. And after we've gotten better at protraction, now we can add dolphin planks. So I'm in the protraction plank on my forearms, and what I'm going to do is keep that protraction, but push my hips up into the air and press forward. So these are similar to wall slides, which are a pretty common physical therapy serratus anterior activation drill. I like these a little better because I've seen so many people compensate the wall slides, and these are much harder to cheat at because your body weight makes this a little bit more difficult. Don't try to progress to these too quickly, and just doing these nice and slow, 3 sets of 5 reps can be more than enough, but this will increase your protraction strength. And now moving on to another more advanced move. After we've gotten good at protraction and we can cue up the muscles quicker and quicker, we'll focus on just the very end range of our protraction. So what I'd like to do is kneel next to a wall. I get my shoulders set up, not elevated, but also not depressed, just pretty neutral. Get my fists on the wall, and I can lean back to get just about an inch or 2 from the wall, and then I protract as hard as I possibly can, almost like a protraction PR. I touch the wall with my knuckles, I relax, I automatically lift my knuckles off the wall from relaxing, and then I protract into the wall again and touch my knuckles. So doing something simple like 3 sets of 10 will really pump out your serratus anterior and all of your muscles around your ribs and your back. So again, this is a little more advanced. If you don't have much range of motion or much strength, it doesn't really make sense to do these. You need to focus on some of the more beginner movements. And now we have a movement that I really like to warm up with for shoulder and bench press days, and that's with a plate. So this is 10 pounds. I would go even lighter than this, 5 to 7.5 or less. Some of you can use a really light exercise TheraBand. You can step on it and just stretch the band, but you can see I'm lifting my arm right up here. This looks good, but it's actually what we don't want to do. So I want to protract everything forward. Again, you should see the lats start to fire, and then I'm going to continue to reach up. A band, again, you can stretch into with your hands, so it actually makes it a little easier to cue. Dumbbells are harder. Be careful here. I would say 5 to 8 reps per side. Give yourself a good amount of rest. If you lose that protraction, there's really no point into doing this because it's pretty easy to do a supinated dumbbell front delt raise, and that's not the point of this. The point is to hold protraction as we raise up the arm. All right, guys, a couple important things before we end the video. People always ask me, hey, how much of this do I have to do? And it's pretty simple. Throw a couple of the movements in before your workouts as part of your warm-up. That's gonna help that workout be better, which is awesome. And it's gonna keep you consistent, which is really the key here. You could also add them to the end of the workout, especially if some of these moves are very tough for you. At that point, when you're fatigued, they're literally like an exercise movement. They're pretty tough. And of course, if you really need better protraction, you could have just like a protraction, 30-minute session every Friday that you work on for like a month. Now the cars I do every day because you're moving in and out of protraction. And as you do these specific protraction movements, your cars will get better, and then your cars themselves will make protraction better. And then you're really just like on maintenance mode. So it gets a little simpler after that, all right? The starting point is always the most difficult, okay? Now, if you like the video, obviously subscribe. You'll see more videos like this for different body parts and a whole lot of other stuff, other topics. If you like the video, hit the like button. That's what it's there for. It's unbelievable how much it helps these videos out, just taking that fraction of a second and clicking the like video. And if you like this style of training, the stretches, the movements, the isometrics, check out my full hip mobility course on my website. 29 bucks. It's 16 more videos, 2.5 hours of content. So thanks for watching and see you in the next video.